You know those moments when you're doing what you love in your business? Maybe it's standing on stage or creating content. Whatever it is, you're totally immersed and time just seems to slip by. This is called the flow state.
At Speaker Flow, we're obsessed with how to get you there more often. Each week, we're joined by a new expert where we share stories, strategies, and systems to help craft a business you love. Welcome to Technically Speaking.
And we are live. We did it. Christa and your dog, welcome to Technically Speaking. It's great to see you. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me, you guys. I've been looking forward to this on St. Patrick's Day.
I know. We're going to have to celebrate. Who got beer?
That's right.
We got beer around here?
I think I'm the only one wearing green right now, though, so I think I'll need to pinch yourselves or something.
Yeah. Oh, gosh. Yeah, I don't even think I own the color green, so.
This is my one green shirt. It's kind of like an off green, too, but I still think
is this
it counts.
Intentional?
Oh, yeah. I woke up and was like, I'm putting green on today.
I wasn't expecting that.
Yeah. I'm Irish. I feel like I should be severely punished for this. Ooh. Okay.
Yeah,
well, or maybe it's always you get to bypass the rule. I don't know.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, maybe it's just it's just implied at that point.
I get a pass.
Yep.
Oh man, well, this is gonna be a fun show. We're super excited to unpack your genius and all the work you do running an agency. Now, we like to do a little bit of research, ahead of our shows, get to know you a little bit, and so we did some digging around, and we noticed this thing on your website called speaker therapy. Can you break that down? What is that?
Well, just as the name implies, it is for speakers, and it is more therapy than you would have ever guessed. So it really is speaker consultation. I've just having so many miles under the hood working with speakers. They often come and say, can I either buy some of your time or just will you help me with this or that? And what I always default to is like brand and marketing. And I say, well, so tell me about you. And they say, well, what I speak on is X, Y, Z. And I say, well, who are you? And they go, well, I don't know who I am. And then it turns into an existential crisis and therapy. Not even kidding. It's like a very short walk in the first 10 minutes. So I just went ahead and called it speaker therapy. And it's actually been overwhelming. I've been doing it for years, and it's truly like a therapy session, but not necessarily in the emotional sense. Speakers have this unique, they are the product. And I think it's really hard for a lot of speakers to for lack of a better word, dissociate the product from the person. And, by the way, that's where things get really weird for speakers. I think sometimes is when the product becomes a person and they start believing their press kit. That's a problem. That's a whole other kind of therapy that I'm not qualified to do. But I do a lot of brand consultation and management. And speakers definitely need to find out who they are, why they do what they do, why they say what they do, and what has given them the right to hold that microphone.
Yeah. It's kind of a unique problem in the professional services universe, too, because most people have like a nice, tidy label that helps sort of differentiate what they do from all the other people on this planet. But we actually just had this conversation a couple of weeks ago with David Newman, another sales marketing trainer in space. Beautiful guy. But yeah, he was just breaking down how you're not your mode of delivery, you're something more than that. And calling yourself even a speaker in the first place is sort of like downplaying what somebody can bring to the table to begin with, because we're not our mode of delivery. Whereas in other areas, people can identify with being an attorney, an insurance agent or something, because it sort of defines the career itself. But speaking doesn't necessarily, especially when you're talking about like a corporate, not an entertainer, so to speak, a problem solver that's using the stage as a mechanism to solve problems. That's really the thing. So anyways, I can understand why there's an identity crisis problem.
Yeah, no, that is such an interesting angle. I hadn't thought about the mode of delivery. Yeah, you are an expert. You're not an expert in speaking. That is just, of course you are if you're getting up on stage and delivering content. So you really, and then you can't even be I think people it's a whole identity thing. I'm sure attorneys have to go through it. It's like they are not their job, and speakers, because their job comes from so much life experience and it's so integrated with who they are. Yeah, it is tricky. It is really tricky. And I really have to give it to speakers who don't lose themselves in it. because it's very hard work. I recognize how hard it is to not lose yourself in the content. You become what you speak about a lot of times, and that's oof, it's not pretty to watch. So I
Yeah.
hats off.
How do
There
you
are
like
lots of speakers who
prevent
get it
that?
right. Say
Yeah.
again.
How do you prevent that from happening? Like, for that, like, how do you raise the awareness of that so you can kind of stay true to your identity, do you think?
Well, I just had a big roster, called an all hands meeting. I don't know. We had half the roster in the room, and so I like to call it the C suite because we usually just rent out like a hotel suite or something. But we actually had it in a really cool workspace here in Dallas. But anyway, I had the talk with them and just said, they're having some really really good success right now, and their calendars are becoming wonderfully robust, and fees are going to increase and the standing ovations are increasing, and I've seen it. I've just seen the rise and fall of speakers, and I just, from the heart I spoke. And I actually had another bureau person there, and she spoke from the heart too, and said, you're all very good people, but keep what you do separate from who you are. Like, stay grounded. I don't know. I wish I had a better answer as far as how to avoid that, but I just give them the talk regularly. And I will say that I think the entertainment industry kind of has by default evolved in that way. The legend has it that Tom Cruise, and I actually have it on pretty good authority, but I'm sure everybody says that. But Tom Cruise seemed normal to a lot of people for a long time. And then he went on and he jumped on Oprah's couch. I don't know if you guys remember that, but he got really weird.
Oh yeah.
We're like, what happened to Tom Cruise? No, Tom Cruise had always been that way. He fired his PR person, who I think was running interference for him a lot, and like hired his something cousin or something, right? So my details are all over the place. Who knows if it's verifiable? But just as an analogy, I guess, like, you got to have someone running interference for you, and partially that is my job with my speakers. If I find that they're not even necessarily emotionally, but kind of like, oh, I really don't want to, or I want to rush out right after. I want to get home for my son's t-ball game, so I'm just going to leave right after I speak. The boot? Nope. Hang on. Flag on the play. Like, no, you're not going to rush out because you're going to stick around, because that's what meeting planners want from you. They want to see your face, unless they're like, no, he's free to go at noon. Then okay, fine. But yeah, and that's when I kind of step in, and that's when people with experience and managers can really help protect a speaker's brand, and just say, I know your son's t-ball game is very important, but you were hired for a job, and you're not allowed to leave work early for that. Sorry, you don't have permission.
Yeah,
Well,
interesting.
speakers are out there are luckier to have somebody like you running that interference for them. It's a
Yeah.
challenging thing, and it's kind of a lonely world for a lot of these business owners. So
Yeah, for speakers it is. Speakers operate in a silo. Like, there's a lot of siloing, and it ends up being an echo chamber for a lot of speakers. And I know, especially speakers in the upper, like, what I kind of see speakers in 4 levels. There's like emerging. So that would be like entry level, kind of maybe done a few gigs. But then there's the I would call them, so there's emerging. You can tell I've got it in my head because I'm looking in my head for the information. Established, elite, and legacy. So those top 3 ones are kind of semi living on a plane, ending up in Puerto Rico for 36 hours, spending it by themselves, not able to spend it with anyone. So that is a lonely thing. So I'm actually working on something right now that is for that top 3 levels of speakers. That, I mean, it's this part of it is kind of in its infancy, so it might be too early to talk about. But I do actually want to build some kind of community for these people, these speakers in the upper three levels. So yeah, that loneliness, and then you kind of start listening to your own advice too. So if you don't have a manager or a roster around you, and you've just built a successful solo career, that it can get a little bit, you're listening to you're getting advice from the guy in the mirror kind of thing.
Yeah,
which is
hard
only
to
so
read the label
helpful.
of the bottle you're in. Yeah.
True that. Yep. So we were getting into this a little bit before the show even started, and I think that, like, this the space that you're in, the agency world, is mysterious, I think,
Oh,
in a
yeah,
lot of
elusive.
ways, because there's so much like gray area. Like there's not like a clean, proper boundaries. I think the way that people talk about agents versus bureaus versus even like getting into the meeting planner world a bit. And so I'd be curious for you to like make the distinction, which we've had other agents do in the past, but I think it's good to reaffirm this, make the distinction between an agent and a bureau. But the real question that I have for you is, what is the relationship like between an agent and a bureau, or is there one at all?
Yes. So what you're going to find is that for every manager or agent, like we are 100% manager, 100% agent. That does make it a little bit of an interesting relationship with the speaker. So for example, entertainment celebrities would have a manager and then their agencies. So they're two different things. And in our industry, we have blended it kind of into one. The speakers bureaus, I don't know. I don't want to rabbit trail too much, but what the heck. So speakers bureau. So I was with the bureau for 10 years, and that's where I learned the industry completely from that side. So I was working with all talent everywhere. For the most part, we were a non-exclusive bureau. So I worked with all speakers everywhere. And the kind of the secret to my success was that I would take speakers' materials and help mold them into what my client want, like that would make it viable, right, for my client. Because my client would come to me and say, I need something for my event. The theme is, resiliency and revolution or something, whatever. I'd be like, okay, so I've got this speaker and he talks about resiliency. Where could I find revolution in his materials? And then I go, oh, okay, this is it. And I'd make him perfect for them. So it'd be a slam dunk. Well, it works, but it's exhausting because, you do that for a proposal and then they're like, oh, our CEO found somebody. You're like, what? Okay. So I ended up that's how I started C Agency. Was I really had an eye on taking my speakers and making them bookable and making them appeal to not just the buyer, but to the bureau, to make it easy for the bureau to pitch and book them. So that's the model. That's the circuitous route to my answers. The model of my agency is very integrated with branding and marketing, and it would seem the emerging speaker, but the ones with tremendous potential. So I have, for better or worse, found a lot of diamonds in the rough and helped to propel their brand into something that was really bookable. And so that's it's a long haul because it takes a few years to get a speaker up and running, but once they get going, it's pretty, it's palpable, the success. So it's been a successful model. Now, to answer your question, not to get I feel like a politician. It's like, that's not the question we asked. So
Context matters.
yeah, exactly. So bureaus are my client. I like, people ask me what CRM I have. I do not have a CRM. People don't believe me. I don't hold direct client information. Like, I do have it. It's all in files, but I don't market to direct clients because that's what my speakers do. Like, they are responsible for building their business. I'm
Mhm.
responsible for building and sustaining and protecting their brand and marketing to speakers bureaus. That's what I do. Bureaus are my number one client because instead of having a sales force and competing against bureaus for the business, I think it's smart business to just say, here you go, guys. Like, it's all yours. I'm going to make my speaker bookable. I'm going to make it easy to work with me, which I am extremely easy to work with. Like, I make sure that, I preempt everything because I've done thousands of events, right, with speakers, and booked thousands of different events for different speakers. And so I know the process. And so my relationship with bureaus is very tight, very, very tight. And I would think that most managers are the same way, but I can't speak for them. That's my model. Yeah, I hope that
Yeah,
answers your question.
for sure.
Definitely.
I think so. I just want to make sure because I gathered this properly, and this is coming from other conversations with agents and bureaus too. But so far, my understanding is that bureaus, their product are the speakers, and their clients are the people who have the events.
Hmm.
Um, and so they do less in the game of helping that speaker, right? They're just trying to
Right.
match make basically. But an agent, based on the trends we've seen, seems to be more involved in helping that speaker establish the business, act as interference. Like your clients really are the speakers that you're representing, with, of course, the addition of working with bureaus. But it seems like the focus slightly shifts to the speakers rather than like the event planners themselves. Am I gathering that right?
Yeah, and that again is the both and of this whole thing,
Yeah, sure.
because I yeah, I am definitely good cop, bad cop for everybody. So, I'll have a client call me, a direct client, and I've got a lot of these lately, um, uh, just because the nature of the roster that I have, I guess, in the last 5 years, kind of really leaned into is those who are really on a mission. Um, so there's like a notion that they all believe in the concept of better. Like I believe in the concept of better, and so they're not just like more money or more whatever. Like everything they're doing, there's a bit of a mission behind it. And so I call myself a missionpreneur now, because it's basically the speakers that I have are also on a mission. The reason I tell you that is because a lot of them have a lot of people that call and say, "Oh my God, can this person come and speak to this advocacy group?" And well, we have $500, which is not in the realm of possibility because I have to protect their dates. And so, Lord have mercy, like if I wasn't doing this, I would be a hostage negotiator because this is a really tricky thing to do, and to go, okay, so I understand, that you're doing this. And then I hear that it's a monthly lunch and learn, and they normally have 45 people. And I'm thinking, oh God, this is not going to go well. But I have to let them down easy to protect my speaker's brand so that, the people out there don't think that so and so's a butthead, and their agent just won't do anything because of money. So yeah, that I have to protect their brand that way. And that is tricky sometimes. Now, the beauty of working, those are all the inbound things that come from my speakers, and they're very glad to pass that off to me. Trust me.
Sure.
But with the bureaus, they run the interference, thankfully. And so when they know that, so and so speaks on whatever topic, um, they're going to get those leads and they can deal with it. It can be their problem.
Yeah, heck yeah.
Makes sense. Yep.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, like, you mentioned that like one of the roles, I guess, that you hold for your speakers is this marketing to speakers bureaus component. And maybe you can just unpack that a little bit for me to answer the question. But I get the sense that there's like a couple of scenarios, right? Like one scenario would be that a bureau already has a speaker in mind. Like I know Lauren Sisler's on your
Mhm.
roster, right? So
Yeah.
if bureau reaches out and says, "Hey, we want Lauren," it stands to reason that you'd be the person that they contact as Lauren's agent to facilitate that deal. And probably this is has a lot to do with your relationships, right? I mean, this is one of the entertainment agents work similarly, right? Like their existing relationships are a big part of what can help an agent be so successful, and I'm sure that's true for you too, coming from your background. But are you also building new relationships with new bureaus, people that you don't already have relationships for a speaker?
Yeah, gosh, COVID really did a number on our industry, right? So
Mhm.
2020, there was a lot of people had to cut back, and so I sent out an email this morning to all of my contacts, and got a lot of bounce backs, surprising bounce backs. I was like, shoot, there. So, but then there's new people, so I'm really having to build those relationships with the new people. Um, yeah, I mean, and I still, God bless it, man. Like I got an inquiry through Doc Henley's on my roster. He's been on my roster since day one, since like a month after he did CNN Heroes in 2009. And he forwarded an inquiry today from a bureau, and I'm like, really? Like they reached out to him directly. I'm like, okay, well, fine, that's fine. I mean, it's just you can't. Like I don't know. I don't know what that is. I don't think it's diabolical. Some people would think that that's an end run. Maybe it is. But the relationship with my speakers is they're like, just please take this because this is what you're here for. They
Yeah.
don't want to quote feed. They don't want to deal with the nonsense. They know that I'm going to run interference, and that's what I'm here for. I'm here to do their speaking business. So yeah, there's always new relationships to be made. Always, always, always. And there's some new models coming out of speakers bureaus too. which I find really interesting. So, got to keep your ear to the ground. But the pre-existing relationships, it's nice to have 25 years under your belt and be like, yeah. Well, I used to say I knew everybody, but I,
Times change, I suppose.
yeah, I used to say I know all speakers out there. Forget it. Forget it. Forget it.
Yes.
Oh my God.
Impossible
There's a
task.
lot
Yeah.
of
Yep.
speakers out there.
Blown up.
Just in
for
the
sure.
United States, there's 100,000 people on LinkedIn that have keynote speaker in their title. So yeah, there's a lot of people out there.
I just saw that headache. Are you serious?
I'm
Yeah,
dead serious.
for sure.
96,500 roughly is the number. Yeah.
Yeah, to be exact.
Yeah, right. I've looked into this. Yeah.
Wow.
So-
I did, as you guys know, actually, I reached out to you, Taylor, and part of my presentation to my speakers last week, part of it, I was like, stay human. Also, here's some statistics. So what Speaker Pool put out was some really good current data, like the 2023 data, which I really appreciated. So I used that, but also I went to a big bureau's website and did some fairly approximate but pretty accurate counting of how many speakers are in each of the big categories. What? You wouldn't believe it. I mean, for funsies, just guess how many leadership speakers are on this one website.
1,348.
Oh my God, you're like
no.
the jelly bean counter.
Wait, really? Was he that close?
I'm playing the prices right
You
here. Come on.
are. Okay.
Wow.
What do we have?
Dang.
What do we have, Austin?
I was going to go higher than that. I was going to say, 3,500.
Oh,
5,000.
that's too high. But Taylor,
Yeah.
you're weirdly close. It was 1,200 and something. Come up for the price.
What door do I get now? Door number 4?
Yeah,
I can spin the wheel?
Dude,
Man,
you just
let's
won a
play this
washing
game.
machine. Congratulations.
I know. Woo, yeah. Yeah.
Thank you. Nice.
Yeah.
Oh, funny. Very good. We should do who's next? Gosh, I wish I had my stuff in front of me. This is a fun game. I didn't really
Yeah, we should make a game out of this. Yeah. It's like a speaking game show.
Leadership. Who's at the top? Oh, business.
Oh, man.
Business as a whole?
Yeah.
Oh,
I
man.
don't know. 2,000. I'll round it out.
Yeah, I'm going to be right in the same boat. I went too high last time.
Because I can't help but feel like
conservative.
leadership, at least at a bare minimum, right? We're going to have 1,200 people in leadership. So, yeah. What came up?
1,700. So it's north of 1,700 for business.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's
and motivation.
nuts.
Gosh, I wish I had my stuff in front of me, guys. I'll send it to you if you want to post it or something. But and again, this is rough approximate data, but like give or take 100. Okay. But I needed my speakers to see. Here's your competition, guys. Like, you do not there's this phrase that I think it's an Alcoholics Anonymous phrase, terminal uniqueness, that everybody is just such a, you are so unique, da 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 da. And I hear it all the time from speakers. We all do, because correct, you have your story. Absolutely. And your story is valuable and your story is valid, but your story isn't enough to make someone want to book you. Okay. Your competition is 1,200 speakers on leadership. By the way, very interesting. I bet my data is a little bit skewed, but guess what was that? You're never going to guess what was all the way at the bottom. I don't even know what the number was. It was so small. You would never guess.
Fee range?
Anyway. Huh?
In terms of topic?
Are you talking fee range or topic? Or what?
Topic.
The very bottom, meaning the fewest speakers
Represented
in
on
that
the
topic.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, man.
You're not going to believe it. DEI, diversity.
Really?
That flashed in my head, but I was like, over the last couple of years, it seemed.
You think that would have blown up?
Wow.
I would have thought. Now I wonder, I would like to check it again with maybe some different search terms, because it can be called many different things.
Sure.
But yeah, I was shocked actually to see that. So, probably, so if you're thinking top is business and bottom is DEI, which is weird. That doesn't sound right. So I'm open to be corrected on that. But leadership, and then motivation was underneath leadership. Inspiration was above motivation. And then there was Olympics was really high.
Fascinating.
Wow. Interesting.
So anyway,
I
There's
mean,
the 100,000
what does
speakers.
someone do to stand out in the crowd then, you know? Like, what's the takeaway from that? Like, how do you compete in a pool of, I mean, at a minimum, in one bureau's instance, 1,700 different people?
1,700 different business speakers.
Yeah, like, how do you stand out?
There's a lot of bureaus. I would say that probably, well, they have several thousand. I don't want to guess, but 10,000 maybe. I don't know. I
Mhm.
remember that we had
Sure,
10.
eSpeakers lists at least that many.
Yeah,
Oh, for
well, correct.
sure.
There you go. How do you stand out? So, I'm a big proponent of speakers don't know what they don't know, and that is not an insult. That's just they've never been in the buyer's chair, and if they have an
Right.
advantage. And so, I don't know any other. This is part of the work that I do is that I've been on the technically buying side for 25 years. So I know what buyers love. And when I say buyer, I mean bureau, I mean client, whatever, hiring organization, the person that sends me the check, signs a contract, what they love and what they hate. And I think it's not so much of figuring out what they love, it's clearing out what they hate. Because
Ooh,
the
unpack that.
big thing, the biggest barrier to bookings, the biggest number one barrier to bookings is fear. It's fear from whoever the buyer is. The Speakers Bureau has puts a. I mean, and I know from experience having done it, and I know from experience having worked with them, it's so much work to get a booking. Anybody who wants to call them an order taker, talk to me, okay?
Yeah.
Say it to my face, because that is not what bureaus do. And if they are, then they've figured something out that I never was able to figure out. There is so much work involved in finding, nurturing, having a client trust you, successfully executing an event, and getting them to work with you again. I have horror stories from not just me, but other people of like I had a really big client as a preferred vendor, and I mean dozens of hours of work. I don't want to say hundreds, but that's what it felt like. And they I went through a successful event, and a big celebrity was late on their private jet. Was that Krista's fault? No, I lost the client. How did I lose this client? That was it. That's all it took. And because they can't blame this big celebrity because everybody loved him. But anyway, I lost the client. So the pain and suffering involved in landing and keeping and maintaining a client for a bureau agent, it's palpable, and it was physical pain for me. I'm a bit of an empath, so it was maybe more for me. So probably people with thicker skin, but and I will say for clients, I like to say that no planners ever lost their job over dessert. So
Mm.
the speaker the speaker budget is approximately, and this is a few-year-old data, but the speaker is about 5% of the budget. That's how much they're spending on speakers. When for food and beverage, it's like a massive percentage. Like I don't have it committed to memory, but I think it's got to be at least 30, 40%, something like that.
Whoa.
Um, right. But no planner is gonna get fired over not having enough leafy green vegetables at lunch, but they will get fired if the speaker's high maintenance goes over by 5 minutes. Maybe not fired, but they'll hear about it. They're going to hear about it if that speaker swears on stage. They're going to hear about it if that speaker leans too far to the right, too far to the left, doesn't walk the line, says God instead of the universe, says the universe instead of God. Like I'm telling you, there are landmines that speakers don't know about that are impacting their business. And your number one revenue generator is always your speech. Your speech, the time on stage, is your number one marketing tool. It's not the only one, but it is the biggest one. So word of mouth will constitute almost 80% of your inbound bookings. So outbound marketing is your speech. Outbound marketing is killing it on site. Outbound marketing is doing the extras. Outbound marketing is playing it safe, and having a consistent, clean brand online. So when people find you, they know what they're getting immediately. Ooh, thanks for coming to my TED Talk. That was quite the rant.
Boom.
Oh,
It's been a joke we've
there's a
like
lot of
used a
unique
lot.
takes there.
Yeah, for
We've
sure.
had conversations with other agents in the past, and the way you look at this is different. And I can tell that it's because I'm sure partially it's just the experience, but also partially because you're probably working with I mean, you mentioned this earlier, right? But you've got those 4 different degrees of businesses that you tend to work with: emerging, oh man, established, elite,
Established. Well, I'm used to
legacy,
working on it.
close.
Emerging, established, elite. Hate that word, but
Elite.
anyway.
Legacy.
Emerges,
Yeah.
and then legacy.
Yeah. Yep. And okay, so with that in mind, right, those top 3 maybe being like the ideal group for you to be working with. They're already getting gigs booked, right? And so maybe while the best outbound marketing tool for an emerging speaker would be different because you got to get the first few attempts before that word of mouth starts to pick up. It really it makes sense that you got to take a look at where you're at in your business. And if you're already seeing bookings, the number one thing that you can do is blow the person planning the event's mind, right? And the bureaus, whoever else is involved in that buying journey. But like that is the thing that gets you referred and gets the audience excited. And so, yeah, I can understand where you're coming from there.
And just this is a recent bit of revelation, I guess, because I think I've always known it, but I didn't realize how powerful this was. This is for any level of speaker. I think your AV crew and the production team at every event could be one of your biggest allies, because meeting professionals and event planners, they have a network. Bureaus, of course, have a network. These AV people and production people are on site all the time, and they see people all the time. And they talk, and I think there is some power in having them be a referral network for you as well, for any level of speaker. And I think I've missed that. I don't exactly know. I used to think, oh, the hotel's got to be, there's got to be some way to leverage the hotels. Ah, man, I've tried. And they're in way too early in the process. They book their hotel 2 years in advance, and then you book your speaker, like 4 days in advance now, which is, by the way, a bizarre trend. Keeps you on your toes. It's a very short turnaround right now. But yeah, I think the on-site AV crew, they're more linked to planners than I think we realize. So that could be a little bit of a secret weapon. That might be new information.
Nice. Oh, I love that. Okay, well,
So-
clearly you're an expert here. So maybe we can land the plane with like a practical thing for our listeners here. Like, what are the expectations that somebody should have about either getting started with an agent or actually, working with an agent?
The barrier to entry, and I've actually heard it a couple times lately, and this is pretty common, I think, for someone who considers himself a manager and agent like me. I am looking for speakers. Number one, for me. Okay, so I'll speak for myself, and then I'll kind of generalize it. So I need speakers who are they've earned the mic. They've earned the microphone. Now, can that mean that they've earned it through 10 years of reps? Maybe. Does it mean that they earned it because they've gone through something unbelievable and they have a platform that's really important? Yeah, could be, but they have earned the mic in some significant way. Now, kind of broadening it, generally, I'm going to want a speaker and anybody's going to want a speaker that you don't have to babysit them on their speech. Okay, like they're a speaker. And here's a dirty little secret: I will sign speakers without ever seeing them speak live. Oh, I hear the gasp around the room. Listen, if you're coming to me and you have this strong of a brand, and if you have this many testimonials and everything, I kind of want to believe that. And then I'll see them speak, and it'll be a pleasant surprise. I mean, I've done it for 15 years. It seems to be working out okay. The speakers that are truly the best have the broadest reach. I don't know how else to say it. So I want to say one other thing too. I have, for better or worse, started repping a lot of sports figures. Christa, your friend Christa? What is 2 thumbs and knows nothing about sports? This guy. I'm a Canadian. I know about hockey. And
hockey,
even
yes.
hockey. That's it. And it's actually served me surprisingly well because I don't get sucked into the like razzle dazzle of like, oh, you did a something with a something in Provo. That sounds hard, you know? Like I just don't know. I don't know these things. And so I just see them on the value of their story and their brand. And because I think there's more of me out there. So I don't think it would do me any good service to rep a hockey player because I'd be like, oh, they're a big celebrity, you know, and everybody's going to want them. No, Krista, not everybody's you. So that's actually been kind of a reverse blessing for me is not knowing much about sports and repping these sports people. They can do their sporty things and I'll stay in my lane and it works. And then just to really broaden it, a lot of agents and managers are looking for a speaker who's, and I'll get really specific, who's minimum $15,000 to $20,000 for a speech and has minimum 20 events at that fee on the calendar in the last year or so. So I know there's a lot of speakers going, what? But that's the reality. That's where we are. That's the upper echelon.